This podcast is brought to you by our partners at 8 Star Energy.
8 Star Energy, a clean energy company leading the future of portable and renewable energy.
To find out more, follow them on Facebook at 8 Star Energy.
I didn't know I was going to do this going in. Like I was thinking about it in the car on the drive into the office to record this. So it was like, he deserves someone to go out there, and he doesn't know I'm doing this. I'm sure he won't listen to it. He needs someone just to remind everyone just how much he did behind the scenes for so many people when he didn't have to.
I want attacking purposeful football all the time. Now we're going to have backs against the wall and we're going to fight, and we're going to fight hard. You've got to show me all the guts and all the determination you've got in your body. You've got to inspire me.
A marvellous kick. That's as good as you'll ever see. And puts Graham back in front.
I don't know about you guys, but if I see one bloke walking out of here, getting a pat on the back from people out there for a good effort, I'll spill up.
From inside the centre square, Boydy kicked the goal. Boydy kicked the goal. From inside the centre. I can't believe it.
Hey, Pack, welcome to Danny Boyd, a podcast about the Bulldogs. We're not... we're still the greatest football club in the known universe, but we're just...
We're the only football club in our universe worth talking about. You know what I mean?
that's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it. I'm Danny McGinley. He's Tom Boyd. We're not angry. We're disappointed.
Yeah. It's a sad day. It's a sad day in the history of the Western Bulldogs.
We always try to be a very positive podcast about the team we love. However... Mitch Wallis is awesome.
Yeah.
He's a great friend of the show. He's one of your best mates. I loved watching him for many years, and he's been delisted. And look, we've just had a bit of a chat off air, and we promised we were going to be professional, but now the mics are on, the emotion's bubbling up. How are you feeling, Boydy? Have you spoken to Mitch? How's he doing?
Yeah, I mean, so I think everyone on the show knows that Mitch is my best man for my upcoming wedding, and if they don't, well, you do. And Mitch has been my best mate since, I don't know, probably 2 months into the footy club. It was just like straight away walked in and we just clicked. And we've connected over a 1,000 different things, but, you know, very recently I've obviously become even closer with, our 2 children being born within 10 days of each other, in Will and Armani. So... mate, it is, it's sad. And I think it's sad for a number of reasons. Obviously, you know, I've always wanted Mitch to do well. And I would say that more than anyone that I've ever met, Mitch had probably more excuses not to try as hard as he did in every facet of his life than he actually has.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, he's a father-son. He's from a very successful family. He's been to a private school. He could have just, waltzed through life and hopefully things worked out. But, he's the complete and utter opposite of that. Like, I remember when Mitch broke his leg and, he was sort of on the comeback trail, and we'll start with the humorous stuff because we'll go into the sadder bits that we're going to miss out on later. But so Mitch broke his leg, right, and he's going through the recovery process. He's gotten back to the footy club. He's still not running, and I sat behind him in the meeting rooms, like directly behind him. And Mitch could have mailed it in. Like, in all honesty, he could have, done his rehab to, the degree that he needed to. There was absolutely no way in hell he was going to play that season. And instead, he decided that he was going to build the biggest lats on planet Earth.
Right.
And so...
For those who don't, your lats are your back muscles underneath your arms.
Mitch did chin-ups more times than he breathed a day. And for me, it really helped because it meant that I couldn't see what was on the screen for 3/4 of the season, and it really just cleared my head. But, that is just one indication of, when things were optional, Mitch just took it to the nth degree and always wanted to be the guy setting the standard in terms of his physical professionalism. But I think even more so than that, you look at Mitch's contributions off the field. For the past 7 years, I think, at least, he has been having young players start at their footy club staying at his house.
Oh, really?
So that he can assimilate them into the footy club. And, to put it into contrast, some people think I'm a decent bloke. Brent Prismal came to me many times and asked, and I was like, there is no way in hell I'm a young player at my house. Now, given at the time I didn't really have a space to put them, but still, there was never really an inkling that I wanted to do that.
Weren't you still at your parents in Ringwood?
No, God, no.
While your house was being...
I spent 10 days in Ringwood. That was too much, going back to live with mum and dad after getting traded. But he's done that, and I've met through him since finishing, or sort of as I finished up, like the guys like Cody Waitman and Lathan Vandermeer and any of the other young boys who've stayed with him over the course of the last little bit. He's actively gone out of his way to introduce them, obviously not only to the team which they're playing with, but ex-players and his friends and family, and just giving them a broader sort of circle to connect with, which I think is, one, completely not required of him as a player, but two, just indicative that he wants people to succeed.
Yeah.
And then I think, for a guy who is, has dealt with his fair share of adversity, probably and the rest over the last 5 or 6 years, including, obviously the broken leg, the significant foot injury this year, the passing of his mother-in-law, which was well publicised, and all the stuff that, probably has gone on behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. As we all have in our lives and jobs, there's challenges along the way. He's still been the guy who has driven every part of social connection. He's hosted the events. He's gone out of his way to try and make people's lives more fun at footy clubs when we've either been good, bad or indifferent. He's been the guy who's, been the consummate professional through, a hub, through, all those injuries that I mentioned. And I just think, it's just sad to lose someone regardless of his on-field performance. We know that he had a great 2020 in particular.
Yeah.
But since he's had he's had some selection/form issues.
I'd say more selection issues. Whenever I've seen him, I've been very happy with him.
Yeah, and look, I think regardless, like you look at the last 3 years, take away the footy from the conversation at all, it is very, very rare to see someone come through a football club and have that much of an impact on the broader people. And look, I mean, it's rare that I go on Facebook, by the way. But this morning...
Should we tell people your fake name?
Well, actually, I don't know how, but my default on Facebook, this is probably indicative of how much I use it, has become Danny Boyd.
Oh, you're just using our page, eh?
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you have a post? I don't think you post on
No.
Do you have a comment?
I read what you comment on our behalf.
Yeah.
But I flicked onto Facebook this morning, probably just out of that weird, tick that we all have to look at Instagram or social media. And Mitch's face popped up, and I saw the thank you from the club, and that he's a heart and soul bulldog who represents what it meant to be through and through red, white, and blue. Farewell, and thank you, Mitch, for everything. And I was like, it was one, weird seeing him with long hair, but two, I think retirement posts don't get, or farewell posts don't get, 4,000 likes or 4,000 reactions. They don't get 921 comments. And the 921 comments, having scrolled through probably about 150 of them, are all the exact same, which is that the impression that Mitch left on the Bulldogs fans is so overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah.
And I think that's just, it's just sad to see someone like that leave the footy club.
Not on their own terms.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And I mean, I think he mentioned in an interview with Brad Johnson that I read that he was, thinking, and again, I have no idea about his future. Again, I am not releasing anything that's not in the public domain. Yeah. Mitch said, that he thought he was going to be here next year. I think
I saw him at the footy festival on the week of the grand final. He was still, you talk about, all the little things he does. He was making an appearance at the McDonald's kick-to-kick stand, and got a photo with my kids, and I asked him, you're around next year? And he went, yeah. So it must be devastating for him.
And again, look, my messaging to Mitch forever and always has been, since I left the footy club, don't tell me anything that I'm not allowed to talk about, because I just don't want to know. And everyone loves gossiping, I think, behind the scenes.
That's all we do.
But more so for me, it was just I want to be comfortable. I like talking about stuff, whether it's, it's more so in public, but also here, and being able to share my perspective, which isn't jaded by too much insider information at times.
Your deniability is very plausible. Yeah.
And I think, for him, he mentioned also, if I'm not mistaken, in this article that he did for AFL Media, that he thought he was going to be there the following season, and that wasn't the case in the end. And, I think it's just, it's just sad that it didn't end up being the fairy tale that we all wanted it to be, which was Mitch coming back, playing some really good footy, hopefully for the next few years. And then, getting to the point where it was undeniable that either he wasn't up to it physically or that, he was ready to move on. And it just didn't end up being that way.
That's your fairy tale. Jeez, you still got that player mindset. My fairy tale for Mitch is obviously he comes back, dominates, wins the grand final, and then as he's up there after getting the Norm Smith, lifting the cup up, just says, "See ya, dickheads," and drops the mic, and that's how he retires.
Yeah. Yours is a bit more pie in the sky. You're like,
that's how us footy fans are, Tom.
The positivism.
No, this is all positive. At this time of year,
optimism.
Pure optimism right there. I mean, look, I would have said something like, when you came to the club, just going, wouldn't it be great if he kicks the winner in a grand final just to shut all the critics up? And then you did. It was brilliant.
Yeah.
We'll ignore what happened after. With the, read his book if you want to know what goes on. But if that book ended there,
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I mean, look, it is what it is. This is part of, the unfortunate nature of footy. But I would just say, given that, we're clearly going to become a younger group next year, it would seem. The sort of more senior players are sort of dwindling away over the past 5 or 6 years, probably since the premiership. And Mitch being, really significant part of that. It would seem to me that having someone like him in the building would make sense. But again, I'm not in the building. I'm not privy to the internal workings of the building. And I just want the best for my mate, obviously, who, I've been, best friends with for the past 6-7 years. So.
Have you seen this depressing photo? I'll put this on our socials. It was sent to me in my WhatsApp group. Have you seen that? It's a photo of the 2016, moments after the 2016 premiership. And it's the team celebrating with the cup. And all the players that are left are in black and white. And the 4 or 5 remaining are in colour.
6 that remain.
6. So we got Libba, Bont, McRae, Tobes, JJ, and
Caleb. And this is not a shot at Caleb. He's very deep in the photo here, so he's like, colour footprint is quite small, so that may have been why you missed him.
Well, there was another one where they couldn't get where McRae couldn't be seen.
Oh, right. Okay.
My theory is he took the photo, but we'll put that on our socials. It's harrowing, but let's not forget it also comes from the best memory that us as Bulldogs fans have, that we have won one. We look at as bad as my mantra this past week has been through all the players leaving that I love and, seemingly some underhanded messaging coming from upper management. At least we're not Hawthorn. At least we're not Essendon. At least we're not St Kilda.
Yeah, and look, I want to be clear. I still love this club and I still want it to do really well. I just think, I also love Mitch and I want him to do well. Yeah. And, Mitch made, and this is a direct quote from him, so now I can't get in trouble, but he said, he was caught off guard. It was a bit of a surprise, quote unquote. He had surgery halfway through the year and there was a fair indication that things were going to continue on next year. I sort of made plans and preparations for that to happen. And by sort of, I'm sure he means I actually made plans and preparations for that to happen. And obviously there was a bit of player movement of the Dogs and he thought he'd be there next year. So, he said it was a shock. But look, his indication, again, we haven't spoken about this. I haven't spoken to him about his future in the game at all, not one bit. I can say that honestly. I've only spoken to him about, what I see for him long term and the, massive contributions he's going to make outside of footy. So, he's
what does he do outside of footy? What career is he going to move into? Coaching, player development, or is he going?
I would suggest he will. Once he wipes his hands of his football career, he will move outside of football. But
is he going to work with his dad? His dad's got the car dealership?
No, his dad doesn't have the car dealerships anymore.
Oh,
Mitch has got he's studying his MBA. So again, he's a pretty well-rounded individual.
Yeah.
He's doing one of the more difficult degrees to do in terms of a master's whilst playing footy and being vice captain and having 2 children and et cetera, et cetera. He's an incredibly capable man. And, again, this is why this is good that I can come on here and talk about it, because I haven't, again, asked Mitch about it, but the quotes that he's given in this article that I'm reading from the Hanger or the Zero Hanger, whatever that is, is that, he's still got that burning desire to play, and he'll see what else is out there. And again, to see, a favourite son of the West playing for another club would be heartbreaking. However, if given what he's given to our club and obviously the impact that I've seen, at least socially, and what I know that he's given to the players and the fans over the years, we just want what's best from him, obviously, and whatever he desires. And who knows? Who knows what will happen?
I assume he's going to end up at Geelong just because every single player has ended up at Geelong. I think they've got a squad of 60 now.
It does feel like that, doesn't it? I remember
all the draft picks.
I remember talking to some, like, it's almost an unspoken truth of the AFL that, and this is not in regards to Mitch, but in terms of like really significant players, they are willing to take a pay cut to go just chill out in Geelong because the culture down there is, do what you need to, don't do extras, as in like you don't need to be at the footy club for 80 hours a week, just do what you need to get up for a game. They're very sort of strong in their culture of sticking together. The town down there is vastly different in terms of living there than it is living in Melbourne. It is weird how they've, sort of created almost their like little regional hub down there that's really successful. Yeah. Like you couldn't imagine. I mean, is Geelong the biggest region? It's not the biggest. I think Shepparton's bigger than Geelong, isn't it? Or is Geelong bigger?
In Victoria?
Yeah.
No, Geelong's bigger.
So Geelong's the biggest regional hub?
Is it non-capital city?
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
Definitely. It's not in Australia. Do you know the biggest non-capital city in Australia?
Should I guess?
You can guess.
Is it like Ipswich or something like that?
No, but it is Queensland.
Okay. Bundaberg?
No. You kick yourself.
Okay.
Gold Coast.
Is that considered a regional?
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
Different city.
Makes sense.
Even though,
if we exclude that, what's actually next? Because that will probably make more sense.
What, Newcastle or something?
Yeah, it'd probably be Newcastle.
Yeah.
Right?
But if you drive from Brisbane to Gold Coast, the buildings never stop. No. It's pretty much the same city.
It's just that it only goes in like 500 metres.
Yeah.
Up the coast. Hence the Gold Coast bit.
Anyway, we digress.
Anyway, we do digress, but yeah.
When can we get Mitch back on here to celebrate his career, not to pour scorn over? Well, he can, because Mitch wouldn't do that. We'll leave the cynicism to us here.
I'm sure Mitch will be very unlikely to come onto this podcast again, given that he's now not playing for the Bulldogs.
What? You can be an ex-player to get on.
He could be. We'll see.
What if we offered him a nice tall glass of custard to come on?
I brought that up again the other day. So we're not talking about custard anymore. No, he. Without disclosing any more internal information, he will have a nice break with the family, a well-deserved one after a crazy year, and just reset. And I'm sure the process from here. I think. I mean, the delisted free agency period goes forever, basically, doesn't it? Like
you've still got you're still
no. I was in. It goes. I think it goes till the preseason draft-ish sort of time, doesn't it? Because it has to go past the draft, otherwise it makes no sense.
Sure.
Because otherwise, how are you supposed to like draft players and then access the free agents afterwards and get your lift spots right?
Yeah.
So I think probably, when's the draft? It's usually mid-November. It's like a month away. So given that, look, I can tell you Mitch is still training like a maniac, so that helps. And getting his foot right, which is good. So, and that's, I'm sure as much for footy as it is for life. You want to be able to walk around and, run around with his lovely daughter who's growing every day. So, I'd be interested to see where the sort of dust settles with him in the next little while. He'll have a good break, and I'm sure, if I'm going to advertise for him, he's the perfect suitor for any club that wants an awesome person and unbelievable leader in their four walls.
Yeah, like he's such a non-dickhead that Sydney Swans, with their famous no dickheads policy, could get 5 dickheads. And Mitch would neutralise them all.
Yeah. He's a
dickhead neutraliser.
He's a -5 dickhead. Whatever you just said.
They could bring in Kyle Sandilands to play for the Sydney Swans, and Mitch are there, and it's still no dickheads.
I must say, I haven't heard a single word out of Kyle in about 10 years because I just don't listen to him.
No, I just picked a random. Steve Price could play.
I don't even know who that is.
Do you know he's that angry little man? He's on the project, and he's the one who wrote the article in the Herald Sun about how AFLW is just the worst.
Oh, yes, I do remember.
I worked with him for 10 years. He's not a fun person.
I remember that article, yes. I would say get Mitch in, and particularly if you've got a lot of young boys, because Mitch is just awesome with the young boys. But again, I'm only going off. Mitch has not explicitly said the words about anything that he wants to do next year to me.
Except play.
Except
Possibly.
that, no, he didn't even say that to me. I'm
didn't he?
finding that out in this article, and this
Okay.
is how our relationship works. Don't talk to me because I talk in public too much. So you do you. If you want like broader life advice or life discussions, come to me, and I will talk in like pseudonyms so that we don't have.
This is what it's like, people. A lot of people ask, what's Tom like to hang out with? There's just a lot of disclaimers before I have to sign an NDA before even coming around for a coffee.
Yeah, multiple NDAs. No, I can't stand. You know what I can't stand? I can't stand ex-players who, like, there's ex-players who've gone into the media who do a really good job. There's ex-players who go into the media who do a very poor job, in my opinion, and that's just from an execution point of view.
Agreed.
And then I feel like there's this other, like, sort of ring of players who live on the sort of precipice of the ecosystem of the AFL, me being one of them, in terms of, like, I do connect. We do this podcast. I still, I was on AFL Media doing the Inside Game. Or,
Oh, did you do the Inside Game?
Is that what
I
it's
love
called?
that pod.
With Sarah Ollie?
Yeah.
She's great, by the way. I actually was really, really impressed.
Yeah, she's cool.
I worked with her once at a different luncheon, and it was a panel, so I didn't really get to see her at her best because she was sort of just distributing questions.
Yeah.
But for us, we sat down for probably an hour and a bit. She was really, really good. So I don't know when that comes out, but
That's a really good
was
podcast.
good.
I'm excited about that because
Had fun.
Beck Goddard used to host that and
right.
and spoke to like club psychologists and nutritionists. For a footy nerd like me, hearing that info was fantastic.
yeah, it was like it was sort of like the performance focus or mindset sort of thing and we obviously spoke quite a bit about mental health and the challenges of dealing with,
Were you just doing your regular gear, or did you get some fresh stuff out of you?
No, there was actually a few other things. I probably gave more commentary on the industry than I have.
Nice.
I mean, I have done a lot of commentary on the industry, I'd say, in more like private forums, as in, speaking arrangements or whatever it is.
Down the pub.
No, I don't talk footy at the pub. No, I probably don't. I probably haven't given as much industry insight. Like one of the things that we spoke about yesterday, not as a spoiler, was really around this whole like attention thing, which is the AFL. And I don't know if we've spoken about it here before, but the AFL is driven by attention.
Oh, okay.
And when and that's what paid my bills and what's paying all of the bills of the players that are going on. It's the people watching on the screen, so the advertisers.
The eyeballs,
Right.
as they say.
Bums on seats, eyes on screens is the way I like to describe it. And, one of the things that I think is really an interesting thing for young players in particular to balance is if they go out and seek all the extra attention, particularly on social media, then, inherently some of that attention, if not most of it, giving it to social media, will be negative. And so you can either go in eyes wide open and be like, all right, I'm going to make sure that I'm like 100% ready for that. Or I'm just going to go in and hope that it's going to be a really friendly place. And that, I would say, is naive. You know what I mean? So we spoke a little bit about that, which I thought was interesting, and how it's changed over the course of my career, because it was really different when I came into the league around social media in particular. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that.
Did you plug Danny Boyd on the Inside Game?
I did mention that I do some podcasting, I think.
That is not a plug.
I know. I think we have every Dogs fan on earth that follows this podcast.
We are pretty niche. By the way, if you know a Dogs fan who listens to podcasts who doesn't listen to us, tell them to do it.
Yeah.
There you go. That's how you do a plug.
What they call it on the McAfee show is be a friend, tell a friend.
Oh, good.
I like that. That's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Be a friend, tell a friend. Now, let's keep going because trade period is not all really, really sad news in Mitch to some also not great news. We've gone from a club that had at least six father sons.
Yep.
To three now with the departures of Lockie Hunter and Zane Cordy, two premiership players, by the way.
Should Sam Darcy be worried? Are we just getting rid of anyone related to anyone else?
yeah. It's a Riley West,
Isabel Grant, see ya. No,
everyone
sorry.
gone. We don't like the family nature of this football club anymore. No, I'm sure I'm sure Sam shouldn't be worried. He's he's in a great place, and Riley's played some really good footy. It was funny with Riley because when he came in, I was like, it's rare to see someone like he's really short for starters.
Yeah.
But he's just when I remember when he first got there, his kicking perhaps wasn't quite up to standard. Don't know where it's at now. Haven't watched enough of his footy, but he's just got that tenacity. For one of not to make a terrible pun, he has that sort of dog in him. You know what I mean? Which is, he's sort of got that, he's got the fight in the dog sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, sad to see Zane and Lockie go. We saw we obviously spoke about Zane I think probably 2 weeks ago once he'd signed with St Kilda, and then Lockie getting traded to Melbourne sort of last minute. We did speak about this on the Patreon, I believe. So
we did, yeah,
about Lockie's trade. Just in terms of the fact that he was the sort of catalyst for about 75 other players moving.
Yeah, if you want some more insider info, less NDAs, please get on board the Patreon. We've started a new thing where Boydy has to answer at least one question ridiculously honestly, including we're finding out which clubs approached him after he retired. There was a big bombshell last week, and if you sign up, you get all of the
a big bombshell.
Big bombshell. Hey, I'm
huge bombshell.
These are called plugs, Boydy. This is sizzle. This is what gets people to do it, not just say, I do some podcasts.
I've never made decisions based on money in my entire life, Danny. Oh, God. Maybe one. What happened? Anyway. It turned out all right.
Losing Charlie Parker as well is mostly sad. We never got to see him play. I love the footage of him going nuts when he got drafted. And we had the nickname ready, the Bird. So, it's just...
and Lewis Butler as well.
Butler's gone. We used to...
and Stephen Martin, who I was just reading before, we actually went off air for about a good old 5 minutes looking for a stat about how we've gone from 6 father-sons to 3 and what that actually meant in the grand scheme of things. Didn't find it. But what we did find, I did find, was that Stephen Martin was like the 3rd oldest player to ever debut in an AFL grand final.
Yeah.
Or 4th maybe.
No,
debut grand final or whatever is the way they framed it in the tweet. But yeah, play their first grand final. Yeah. And Matty Boyd was another who was right up there.
Yeah.
So
these are good stats. We'll follow at Sir Swamp Thing.
At Sir Swamp Thing.
But you should. We're bringing in Rory Lobb. I have a question for you, Boydy, about because I've watched the final day trades with Jager O'Meara going over to Freo.
Yep.
Then there was suddenly footage of Jager at the Dockers training ground.
Yes, but Jager's from Perth.
So he was just there, you reckon?
I would say he
was there on holiday.
Well, look, I think Hawthorn basically said everyone's open for sale. So we're getting rid of everyone.
So he just went.
Luke Bruce is like the only player over the age of 21 that's still there.
Which is great. We got to enjoy these golden years where Hawthorn are going to be an absolute ruckus. But, okay, my question is, Rory Lobb, there was some great footage of him wearing a Bulldogs jumper. Now, would someone have flown over to meet with him from the club and give him that jumper for the photo shoot, or did they send him to the AFL shop?
Someone would have just bought it and got it mailed to his house, presumably, or his manager would have. That's what we pay those people for.
Yeah.
But I must say, never really heard of someone buying a property in a different state under contract, presuming a trade's going to go through. Never heard of that.
So he's bought a house, has he, in Perth?
This is very well publicised. This was all over the paper. He bought a $1 million property in South Yarra for his partner, and his partner had moved in South Yarra. And I was like, that's ballsy.
Yeah.
Given that you still have 2 years on your deal. But
evidently, a $1 million flat in South Yarra. So that's a studio?
It's probably
it's a one bedroom.
It's probably 9 by 9 meters sort of thing. 3-story, but 9 by 9.
Let's just say Caleb Daniel's the only person who could sleep.
He's got an internal lift that, God, South Yarra is just crazy. I lived there when I first got back to Melbourne, and it's just a carnage area. Anyway, for all of you South Yarrians, none of which I'm sure support the Bulldogs, so don't worry. But yeah, I mean, I must say, you did teach me or give me a good piece of advice, which is just turn the radio off for the first 6 days or 8 days of trade period, because it's all rubbish. Yeah. But watching the Lockie, Josh Dunkley, Rory Lobb, Tom Mitchell.
Oh yes.
Jager O'Meara, all of these guys are all, relatively. Pretty much all of them are either best and fairest winners, I think.
Yeah.
Or except for probably Rory, and significantly paid players, and they all go through in the last 20 minutes of trade period, all hinging on what ended up being a future 3rd round selection.
Yeah, which and we were talking about on the Patreon that who's going to use a 3rd round or whatever, but I'm suddenly now filled to the absolute brim with optimism because let's not forget the greatest draft pick late in the draft of all time.
Toby McLean. No, he was quite high.
Way better than that. Chris Grant, pick 105.
Oh yeah, he is the fairy tale story, isn't he?
So whenever we get a pick, I wonder how many picks over 100 we've done in our history.
I wonder how long since there's been a pick over 100 that has happened. Because once you pass, you're out of the draft.
Right.
And you only have to take 3 players each year. So you have to delist or relist 3 players. So the way that works, at least, unless it's changed, and I am completely unaware, but I'm pretty sure it's the change. So you can delist, say, do you remember when we did with Rourke? So we delisted Rourke and then relisted him. But that means he's on the open market.
Yeah.
So anyone could have picked him up, but we, committed that we were going to re-pick him up. So that still counts as a new player because he went back into the draft since he came out.
Yep.
But there has to be 3 changeover every year. And I think, one interesting thing is at least the kids coming out this year played footy, which, gives me hope that hopefully our recruiting team can pick up. And I'm not saying our previous ones were no good. It's just that imagine being a recruiter when there has been no junior football for 2 years.
Yeah, you got to watch their. They've got to play AFL Evolution on PlayStation. And send your videos in.
What was the new one called? Wasn't there another one that they were going to release, an AFL game?
I think it's just Evolution's the latest one.
I don't know. AFL 2010 was the one I was thinking of.
Oh, see, I'm so old. Anyone. I'm just going to say 6 words that anyone my generation can hear it. Out of bounds on the full. Does that mean anything to you?
Well, I didn't have a PlayStation.
This is a Nintendo entertainment
or a Nintendo,
system.
Or I didn't have a single entertainment system my entire life.
Didn't you?
Nope. Actually, I bought one when I played footy, at 21 or whatever.
See, this is how you get to be number 1 draft pick. No distraction with video games.
My old man, so way back in the day, there used to be these points, frequent flyer points basically, but you got them through the business, through buying stuff, because Dad owned a commercial electrical business.
Yep.
So if you bought from this wholesaler, they'd have points, and then you could buy stuff off a catalogue.
Yeah.
Exact same as Qantas.
Flybuys or whatever.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he once got himself, because he was adamant we were not going to get one. And then anyway, he ended up buying a PlayStation for us.
How old were you?
Probably 12.
Yeah.
I didn't find out about this until I was 18, by the way.
All right.
Because he put it in the box, at angles, at our holiday home, thinking if we're really sick one year, he'll pull it out just to distract us. It never left the box.
Oh,
ever. And then I found it when I was 20 or 18 or something. I was like, what's this, Dad? He goes, mate, been in there for 10 years.
Oh my God. Another piece of the puzzle falls into place. What a horrible story.
That's how adamant Dad was. And he's like, I'll never let my kids play that. It was hilarious.
So what did you grow up playing? I know you got Danish heritage. Was it just Lego?
Bionicles were big in my family. That's
Lego,
That's
isn't it?
Lego,
Yep.
as well. Lego and Duplo, obviously, when we were younger. A lot of sport, a lot of outside stuff.
Of course.
Bike riding, surfing, swimming, all that sort of business.
But what about toys? Did you just have a ball and a cup on a string?
No, me and Dad just used to keep the footy pretty much.
Okay.
Since I was 4.
What about at night time?
The way we structured our sleeping, this is actually, was as we got older, the evolution of it, every 6 to 12 months, we'd try and negotiate a later bedtime as you do when you're a kid.
This is why you're good at contracts.
Yeah. But this is going to be so far into kids these days, which I don't know if any listen to this podcast, so it's all good. But we negotiated based on TV time slots. So at 4 o'clock or whatever, it was ABC Kids.
Yes.
And then I can't remember, the 5 o'clock, it might have been a specific show for that half an hour slot.
Yep.
And then there was some other specific show. And then it was okay, now we're at the 6 p.m. mark. It's The Simpsons is on.
Yes.
So could we watch The Simpsons? We got to an age where we were allowed to watch The Simpsons.
Okay, yeah.
Then it was Neighbours.
Really?
6:30.
Well, that would have been disappointing after The Simpsons.
It was, it felt like an adult show to us when we were, 13 or whatever.
Okay, yeah.
And then Home and Away at 7:30.
So when are your parents watching the news? See, my parents were militant.
No, they
watching SBS News.
No, they used to listen to it on the radio. If they're doing it. And then once we got a bit older, my parents, because my parents never watched the soapies with us, they'd come down and we'd watch. There was NCIS was our
really.
Once we're 15, 16.
Yeah.
Or it was Supernatural was big in our household.
Really?
Yeah. So that's how. But that was like, what time are you going to bed? Well, Supernatural runs from 8:30 till 9:30 or whatever it is, or 8 till 9, and you're going to bed after that. So
Even when you're late 15.
I can't remember exactly when like the next stage happened. But
Wow. Well, to give you my insight, because my parents were old when they had me. Like my dad was 42 when I was born. By the time I was about 12, 13. No bedtime. Like he went to bed. They went to bed before me.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So it was just free reign.
We're pretty structured in our household. But then, like, I was playing sport 7 nights a week by the time that I was, or 7 days a week by the time I was 14. So I didn't really have the issue of like being up too late. And then also, I was a massive study nerd. So I was also spending all my time in my books, just trying to get ahead for the next day so I could go and play sport after school. And
So anyway, that's who we're drafting.
hopefully we can find one of them. I don't know if any of them exist anymore, given the streaming services that have come on board. But
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, kids these days will never know the excitement of... My parents used to say, all right, next ad, you got to go to bed.
yes,
Next ad. Next
See?
ad. But then they'd forget.
Yeah.
Then you'd be halfway through the ad break and you'd be like making eyes at your brother going, don't say anything.
Don't you
Shut up. Shut up. Or if you have a vindictive older brother like I did, if we had separate bedtimes, which we did for a while, wasn't Danny supposed to go to bed next, Dad? You prick.
It was a bit, yeah, exactly. Because we mustn't have had it for long, but there was very brief periods where my parents worked out this didn't work very well pretty quickly. But it was like Tom and Georgia, the older two, you can stay up, but Tessie, you got to go to bed. And then Tessie kicked up a stink, and that didn't last. So anyway, we're back to Western Bulldogs after that brief diversion from normal programming.
Yeah, that's a segment we called an insight into why Boydy is the way he is.
Why Boydy was drafted number 1, basically.
Yes.
That's exactly the why. Because I did nothing with my life except for schools and sport.
You're our favourite robot.
How are we going to mentally spin this for the supporters of the Western Bulldogs to get us into a space? Okay.
You got to think of people like Linda, who's head of the membership department, and I'm pretty sure we've said this on the podcast. Linda West is the best person at the footy club. You see her there at the cheer squad. She's the most patient woman in football. She's the one who, if you ring up to complain about something with your membership and you ask to speak to the manager, you will get to Linda. And she is so switched on and so lovely and so understanding. And once again, she has the hardest job in footy. How do you spin this for a membership drive next year?
In years gone by, perhaps when I was, a younger man, I may have had any understanding of what's going on in the draft, other than that I think Ashcroft or something is getting drafted number 1.
Yes, that is true.
That's pretty much all I know. And he's got nice hair, is what I will say. Like, that's about the extent of my drafting knowledge.
Well, what I do, okay, let me give you a bluffer's guide. This is how you make it sound like you know about the draft. Just do a lot of, it's tight. Yeah, you go after Ashcroft, it's tight, but then go, it really is a super draft.
No. See, this is the mistake that you made. This is how you actually do it, because I've had to actually do this. So obviously Ashcroft is the front runner, but it's going to be really interesting to see with the sort of how stacked up it is post pick 1, whether we see a lot of key position players go early in the draft, or if clubs have learned their lesson from previous drafts where these young key position players who look really good at the lower level struggle to translate that into the senior game.
Oh, you're good.
See, I know how to do it.
Look at this.
And then, our club's going to take the punt on, the early ruckman. We haven't seen, many ruckmen work out early in the draft that have been taken, and for the ones who do, like a Tim English at the Western Bulldogs, it takes a few years to get them in. And players and clubs and coaches are going to want success now.
Yep.
So that's what I think about this year's draft.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Not bad.
What pick have we got? We got pick...
Don't know.
Yeah, all right.
Probably somewhere in the realms of if I had to guess...
What about pick 9?
13? Oh, no, we traded up, didn't we? Because of the Dunks thing. Yeah, 9. Let's just say 9.
Let's say roughly pick 9. Who knows what we're going to get? We will report back on it. We were supposed to review the AFL men's
No, we
season.
said we were going to do a real breakdown of trade period.
Oh, okay, good.
Session. Don't worry.
All right, sweet.
Okay,
cool. I don't want to deny anyone.
So, do we have any fan questions? I'm sure we have a few. Any that we can actually answer? Because if we do, I'll do a couple of spins of how we can actually be optimistic about next year.
Okay. We don't actually have... most of them are just... People are just wanting... The only questions I'm getting are ones that you can't answer. Like,
Okay.
what is actually happening with...
X, Y, and Z being traded and cut, and what's actually happening at every footy club ever, which is like it's always organised chaos at every footy club all the time.
Totally. And do you know what these questions are actually? If you read down into it, what pretty much every fan wants is tell me it's going to be okay.
Exactly. Or where are we going?
Where are we going?
Which I must
tell
say,
me it's going to be okay. So give us the positive spins.
Well, let me just say, for the first time in my time as an ex-player, I would say that the fans are more aligned in the questions they're asking than they ever have been. Just from my sort of pie in the sky view, as in they're going, why? Like, what is actually going on with our list? Like, why are we getting and losing these players? I think that hasn't been really a question that we've asked over the last 5 years. Because we've always sort of been optimistic. We've got the list. We just need to translate it on the field.
Yes.
Doesn't feel like we're as confident this year. We're as least confident as we've been in a while.
Yes.
I would say more than ever, there's been questions about the volatility. They're like, why is all this stuff happening?
Yep.
It doesn't seem to make any sense.
Yep.
And also, I would say there's been more commentary about... losing senior good players of our footy club this year in particular.
Yes.
So, how can I spin it?
Do you have a plan here? Are you improing here?
No, I think there are some really significantly good things that we do have on our list. And I would say for the first time in the history of the Western Bulldogs Football Club that I can remember, given that I only came in 2014.
That's true. I mean, the fact that you're saying Western Bulldogs Football Club just shows it's a Footscray Football Club.
Yeah, I'm all for
Western Bulldogs.
I'm all for Footscray, mate.
Footscray. Use our name properly.
Well, whatever. It's on the back. I'm looking at a bag of Aaron Norton, Caleb Daniel, Jack McRae, Marcus Pontabelli. It says Western Bulldogs twice on one side of it.
They are so confused as to what. Look, I'll take a photo so people can see on our socials what bag he's talking about. There we go. Anyway.
So, we, for the first time since I've ever looked at the list of the Western Bulldogs Football Club, actually have a really decent array of tall players.
Yes.
Which is crazy because that's never been the case. So, we have... I have significant confidence that Tim can now hold down the number one ruck position. My only concern would be that I'm not convinced from the very little, by the way, that I've seen of Rory Lobb is that he's super keen on ruck. I think he much more sees himself as a forward.
Right.
Which is good, but we need someone to take 30% of that because Tim can go forward and take a catch as well. So they're going to have to work that out between the two of them. They're both like 275 centimetres. That should help. But, if you look at the body compositions, like Tim started like Rory and now look what Tim looks like, and Rory started like Rory and Rory still looks like Rory. So he obviously likes being lighter and springy, right?
Yep.
Sam Darcy had a good start to the year. Couple of I would say, confidence moments in the finals.
Yeah.
That, were very clear. Jamara, I think, showed a bit more, and he's going to benefit from a better side, I would say, more than any of the other players.
Yes.
Because he's just sort of this, at this age, mercurial sort of player.
Yeah, well, when we play well, he plays well.
Yep.
Look at when we beat the D's by 10 points.
I still think if you look at a fit Bontempelli, McRae, Smith, Treloar midfield, it's in the top handful in the league, so that helps. We're going to have some interesting things happen down back with the loss, obviously, of Zane, seeing whether it's a Keith Jones background.
Of course, Liam Jones coming in, yeah.
But, Keithy, obviously, at times this year probably looked like he'd lost a step to the year before.
Yep.
We'll be interested to see if Jonesy is what he was when he left, because he was really, really good, particularly on the big boys, like on the Hawkins of the world. He played really well against them. So that's good. I mean, we still have Caleb Daniel and Ballydale coming off half back, which is something that most teams can't say they have.
Yep.
So, yes, we have a few holes. We still, my God, I missed out on probably our most important player. Tom Liberatore is still.
I was wondering
he's just played his probably best season in 5 or 6 years. I mean, he did have a good 2021 campaign, not to mention.
Can we redo the best and fairest now that Dunkley's left?
Well, I didn't even know any of the votes. So
just how we all sort of, it's just a tacit agreement now between Bulldogs fans that the AFLW Premiership captain was Ellie Blackburn, even though technically it was Katie Brennan, but it was Ellie Blackburn.
Yep.
we just say the 2022 best and fairest was Lebba?
It was like 2 votes or something, wasn't it?
Sure, yeah.
I don't know. It was very close. Anyway, like Tom at his best is just he is the biggest value add probably and least rated around the league or promoted around the league of any midfielder in the competition.
It's the dictionary definition of an X factor.
Yeah. And, heart and soul sort of stuff. So, again, you look at that group of 5 midfielders, you look at the couple of halfbacks to drive. It'd be interesting to see how JJ goes, see if he finds his spark again as a half-backman or potentially as a half-forward. Mention the sort of 5 or 6 big guys up front through the middle of the ground and obviously the 2 big boys down back. I mean, that's a pretty good list of players. I suppose my question and the question for all Bulldogs members and fans is where are the other 8? What do the other 8 look like? Who are they? Is Cody going to have a really, really good year next year? Is Lath going to find his, real rhythm and play every single week? Obviously, Ed Richards had a good year this year.
We love Ed.
Missed Ed. Buku, is he going to have a really, really good season and break out as an intercept defender that, sort of will replace the Easton Wood of old?
Well, Ed Richards is very good at that.
Yeah, that too. But, Buku's a little bigger and a bit more springy, I would say.
Use them both.
That's what I'm saying. But... Yeah, I think it's just are we going to be all on the same page and is that last 7 or 8 players going to be, who are they and what are they going to look like? What are they going to look like next year? Are we going to get the same out of the players who played well this year and better out of the other ones or not? Because losing Josh through the middle is going to be significant given he's our best and fairest. So it's going to require some stepping up from the rest of the midfield. I think it's just still a lot of questions, but the hope I would say is that we still have... 15 really, really good players, maybe 13 or 12, whatever.
And we might, and people like Buku and Ed on their day can dominate.
Well, and they're making massive steps forward. Bailey Dale didn't have the same year this year as he did last year, but he still had a really good year.
Yeah.
So the idea is you take, you have a breakout year and then you kind of hold it. Hopefully you just keep going like Bond.
Of course.
But, you hold it and then you continue to sort of improve year on year on year until you get to the peak of your career and then you try and hold on as long as you can. So that's what we would be hoping for, I'd say, across the board. But yeah, there's definitely players to be optimistic about. We just have to play well together and that is always and forever will be the greatest challenge of being a good AFL side.
Yeah, we've got to make the people that you worship each week, we worship as well. We hope, given the past few days, that the running of the club is going in the direction that we don't think...
Here's a final question. Do you think they're going to come out and actually talk about... I just saw that they'd opened it up to questions to Sam Power, right? I'm like, have you got any questions? And you email it to this email address. I'm like, that's going to be the most filtered thing of all time.
Yeah.
But do you feel like that... Amit or Luke or Granty or whoever's in charge down there is going to... Or Kylie or any of them are going to come out and say, look, this is where we're at. There's a lot of questions in the fan base, and this is why all this stuff's happened, or are they just going to be like, we'll just hopefully win next year and winning will cure all?
Absolutely the second one.
Yeah.
This club...
Which I hate the lack of transparency. Now that I'm not on the inside, the lack of transparency is frustrating.
Yes!
I actually, I don't mind when they go, look, we're not where we want to be. We think we have a better list than where we finished this year.
Yep. Say that, please. Yes.
Yeah, and these are the reasons why we didn't get there, and some of it was within our control. We made some mistakes. No one's ever going to say that, but...
No, but it would be great if they did.
Feels like players have to say it, though.
No, but... Oh, God, if you imagine if a player said that, the
players
bollocking they'd get.
But players have to say, if they ask Bont, why is things not working? Bont has to say, yeah, we're not playing at that full capacity or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But... we as a midfield group, we own that. He said that. I'm guaranteeing the media does.
Yeah, sure, but he read the auto cue that the media manager had set up behind him.
But they don't come out there and they don't. Yeah,
there's just vague phrases in the emails, just saying after a disappointing year, we're excited that we can go back. It's just come on, treat us like adults.
Yeah,
treat us like members of the club.
Yeah, I do feel like that at times.
It would be, even little things like, how do you get on the board? It's a club. You can nominate yourself and be voted at the, annual general meeting.
AGM, yeah.
But when's the AGM? You find out, an hour before.
Yeah, good luck being just random getting on the club board.
Exactly.
Of any footy club.
Exactly.
I don't know how you do that, actually.
Yeah, so
I know I feel like it's a quorum
you need a couple of people to nominate
on the
you.
I know you have to get nominated from the board, I think. Someone on the board has to basically vouch for you to get a shot, I think.
This is so dodgy.
It could also be completely wrong what I'm saying. So
anyway. And by the way, all the clubs are like this. Isn't just the Dogs.
This is
just
literally written into the bylaws by the AFL.
Yeah.
Into the clubs, because don't forget, the clubs are all registered to the AFL.
Because the dream is, listeners, Tom Boyd on the board.
No.
Yeah,
never, ever.
Ever. Okay, who do you want on the board? You or me? Exactly.
Yeah. No. If the question was, who do you want? Me? Actually, I don't know. Me or a fan? It's probably still me, isn't it?
Yeah. You want you with your brains and you're using the yin part of the. What about the logic one?
What we need is we need a board translator. Like we need a little fan translator who just goes to the board and says, "Look, what's actually going on here?"
Yep.
And then they go, "Okay, here's what the fans actually need to know." And then they sit down, and yes, it's a bit of to and froing, but the translation ends up being a bit more insight for the fans to actually go, "Hey, we're going to be okay or not," in some real terms.
Yep.
And then when it's going really good, the fans can just pump it up to make it sound like it's the best thing.
That's a great idea. Okay, so then then you need both of us on the board, where you can translate the business stuff to me, and I'll translate the fan stuff to you.
Yeah, and then we'll translate the board stuff together.
Yeah, to the fans.
Yeah,
this is great. We should be ambassadors of the club.
I don't want.
I'm sure after this episode, they're going to absolutely bring us in.
Well, we didn't say anything that bad. We're just flat that the best bloke in history left the footy club.
No, not left, delisted.
Yeah,
that's what's flattening. Anyway, all right. Well, thank you for listening to our Requiem for Mitch episode.
Yeah, that's the title, I think.
Requiem for a Wallis.
Requiem for Wallis. Yeah, you work with the words, but it's essentially that, isn't it? I didn't know. And look, you can put this at the start of the episode if you want. I didn't know I was going to do this going in. Like I was thinking about it in the car on the drive into the office to record this. So it was like, he deserves someone to go out there, and he doesn't know I'm doing this. I'm sure he won't listen to it. He needs someone just to remind everyone just how much he did behind the scenes for so many people when he didn't have to. So, go Mitch.
Today's episode was proudly brought to you by 8-Star Energy, creating energy for the future and power you can count on.
Follow them on Facebook, 8-Star Energy.
I gave my childhood to that roar of the red, white and blue sea, and the knowledge that you had two loves, the Bulldog boys and me. 20 years on, I feel that longing hanging in September air. But the reason I go every week is to pretend you're still there. And they will find the glory one day, and I will throw it at your feet. It's a long, long road they're running for you, the dogs of Footscray streets. Long, long road they're running for you, the dogs of Footscray streets.